everybody, and welcome back to FeedbackLoop. I'm Joey,
And I'm Jeremy.
and I stuttered there because I am shuddering at the thought of what Jeremy is about to say about this album this week. But
Joey's built up so much anticipation for this.
I'm freaking out, man. The album in question that we have been listening to is "Love Songs for the Apocalypse" by Johnny Hobo and the Freight Trains.
Indeed, I have listened to that album, which he states that we have listened to.
Man, I hope so. It was only like 25 minutes long.
It was very, very brief. So hopefully this episode will be brief. I also post on Facebook sharing that this week's is supposed to be. I promised the people that this week would be shorter, but according to what I heard earlier, maybe that's not going to be the case.
I'll try to keep it the case.
We'll see what happens. So this is a band that's close to you, right? Not like in relation, proximity, but like emotionally, I guess.
Yeah, more specifically, the kind of frontman, like guitar player, singer, Pat the Bunny. There's just a lot of his music. You can hear kind of his personal journey through music, and it's not necessarily an exact one-to-one for like any sort of character arc in my life, but
right.
I've
you see yourself in some of it.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so this is where we're starting, at least for Pat the Bunny.
Yeah, this is technically the third episode of this kind of folk punk thing going on, but this is the first of the sub journey, I suppose. That's Pat the Bunny.
Yeah.
So theoretically, the next 2 weeks will also be Pat the Bunny or his associated bands.
Yeah, I mean, we're just gonna ride this Johnny Hobo train, this Pat the Bunny train, all the way like a really fucking long time, and I'm sure Jeremy's gonna jump off some point. It may be out in the desert, out in New Mexico, singing like New Mexico songs or something.
That would mean that I enjoyed the track number 1 on this album, New Mexico Song. If I was going to sing it.
See, you wouldn't sing this one. You would say, "Hey, I hate this so much. I'm going to write a new Mexico
song. Better
song.
version. Yeah. This one's New Mexico Song version 2.0.
Yeah.
Good segue. I was thinking you were going to tie in the freight train as well, but it was just the train. We're taking a train through New Mexico.
I should have, but it
doesn't matter. Track number 1. So here's the big reveal. I wasn't completely certain what to expect from this album. I was not expecting harmonica, which is fairly prominent in this album.
Yep.
I actually don't hate this. I don't hate this guy's voice at all. And I'm not sure if it's just because I've been exposed for the past 2 weeks to other music of this type, but I think it fits really well. I like his vocals in this. I like the kind of the group shouting along with him. It sounds like this whole album was kind of like played on his back porch or something with a bunch of friends, just kind of like rocking out with him, it's a cool vibe.
Yeah, that's how a lot of his music is. I mean, like there's other bands that he has where I think the total lineup is like 20 people, just because most of his music is made as kind of just like jams. Like he does a lot of shows, has always done a lot of shows just by himself playing all this music. But whenever he gets the chance to like record, it's just like all of his friends who know how to play music are stopping by to like do backup vocals or trumpet or harmonica or plenty of different instruments. So
and there's trumpet on this album as well. There's 3 instruments on this album. Not including various percussion noises.
Yeah.
There's the acoustic guitar, the trumpet, and the harmonica. Is he playing the harmonica himself, or does he have a friend that plays the harmonica? Do you know?
I'm fairly certain. I mean, I know he plays the harmonica, but I think from what I've seen of this time period, I think somebody else is playing the harmonica.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I didn't have anything enlightening to say one or the other, but yeah, I think it blends really well. I think this is in a better direction for me than the prior 2 albums. Mischief Brew is like the bottom of the barrel for me, I think, right now.
Mm-hmm.
AJJ was a step in a better direction, and this kind of pivots off. So there's some things that I think I prefer about Knife Man. Mm-hmm. But I think overall this is in a better place, and I'm curious to see the direction that this goes.
I am excited to have this go in a direction. So,
I was messing with Joey prior to it, and I asked him if he had an album ready for next week. He said, "Yeah," and then we were talking as if I also picked an album just in case I really hated this, that we would just stop this journey in the middle and go and listen to something that I wanted to listen to. But that's not the case. I'm not ever going to be that guy.
Well, that's good, and I'm glad you like him. I guess he's kind of like, so as far as folk punk goes, it's like a whole, especially this DIY portion of it. They're like the people who make this music. I feel like out of all of them, Pat the Bunny is kind of the most known. He's kind of like the front man of folk punk. Like he's usually a lot of people's intro to it, and he just kind of encapsulates everything that I like about it all into one person who can make great bands and have great sounds with them.
I'm not going to say I'm a fan of him as a person.
Yeah.
I definitely have thoughts on his lyrics throughout this album that I don't necessarily agree with, but yeah. I do prefer this album to the prior two albums at the very least.
That is completely understandable, and by the end of this episode, and especially by the end of this journey, it'll make sense. I mean, we'll just say he was a way different person whenever maybe not way different, but he was a pretty different person when he wrote all of this music. So.
He's grown up.
Yeah.
Speaking of lyrics, though, I noted the first note on lyrics is, man, I think this is my kind of folk punk. So that's some pretty high praise, right?
Yeah, that is some huge praise.
This feels like we're going in the right direction. But this song is just about like sitting on a curb, smoking a cigarette, and dreaming of being quote unquote truly free and not a part of some system. It's kind of like tropey punk stuff with rebelling against the man, but it's very like it feels rational and like self-aware in some way that wasn't the kind of naive anarchism that we got with like Mischief Brew and stuff, but it is in a similar direction. Obviously, being punk, that's kind of what they sing about. This song to me, I think lines up perfectly with what you want from life, as like you, Joey, want from life, or at least what you dreamed of when you were younger.
Yeah,
and I certainly don't fault you for that at all. It's a cool song. It's got cool like dreamy vibes that just feel good.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that, because this is the first song by Pat the Bunny I ever heard. So it was
from then on, your life was drastically changed.
It really was.
You became Pat the Bunny.
Yeah, I wish. Maybe I don't wish. He's been through some shit, but I wish I could start from right here and go forward. But so I didn't hear this music until a little bit later in life. Like I think I was like 19 maybe.
Later in life at 19.
Later in the life that I have lived so far, I guess. I'm gonna regret hearing. I'm gonna hear that when I'm like 60 and be like, "Fuck you." But so I had already lived a decent amount of my like teenage years and everything, and this song, like I caught it at the tail end of those feelings, at the tail end of this experience that I had, and I feel it was something that really helped me indulge in those feelings of wanting to figure out the world, wanting to figure out what I want out of it, and kind of rejecting society, what I had been brought up believing, like not needing to be seen as somebody of status by the majority of society, and letting go of what I view as unhealthy, that was drilled into my head since like childhood, and not needing to be seen as respectable by people who do nothing to earn my respect in return. Like just kind of the random people who they're like, "Oh, you want to look good, like you dress up and do whatever."
The man.
Yeah, fuck the man. I'll definitely fuck the man. But it was just kind of like, it really encapsulated the feeling that I feel like I couldn't put my finger on throughout a lot of my coming of age. And then I heard this, and it just instantly clicked, and I was just like, yes, this is what I need to hear right now.
Yeah, I think I had a similar, obviously not the exact same experience you had, but like I definitely felt like something clicked in my head when I listened to this week, not when I was 19. But like I don't know, there is a quality to it that is distinct, and it has that kind of, it's almost, it's so weird to think of it like this, but I feel this album, specifically in the song even, like as a sort of nostalgia for your life in many ways. It's like this is in so many ways the epitome of what I've always called quote unquote Joey music. And that, like, normally when I say that, it's an insult kind of a thing, but in this, it just, like, it perfectly describes what I know Joey to be as a person in so many ways. And I'm just like, man, this makes perfect sense that this is an album that Joey likes so much.
Yeah, man.
I like you as a person.
Well,
we are very good friends. So by some weird extension, you could argue that I really, really like this album.
Well, that's just, that makes me very happy. I'll leave it at that. I am filled with feelings of.
We're droning on a whole lot.
Well, okay, yeah. I'll move after I talk about the fact that I just reread some of the lyrics. Like, just in the chorus, he's saying, "I'll be waiting in this parking lot, and in my dreams, I'm dirty, broke, beautiful, and free," which is just like a feeling that I felt a lot when I'm like looking back on my life, like scrounging for quarters in my car to buy like cigarettes, and I'm just like in a parking lot and I have nowhere to be, and I'm just like, I'm completely at peace. And then another line, "We aren't revolutionaries, but we are the revolution," I feel like is a really hard-hitting line, just of the fact that, like, it's the people who have the power and not like the revolutionaries who go off and spend all their time studying about social change and everything. It's the people actually getting out there and doing it who are the people making the change.
Even like in this case, I mean, granted, I don't know Pat the Bunny. I don't know if he is an activist of sorts, and that he's like actually taking action on anything. But even without that, I feel like saying we aren't revolutionaries, but we are the revolution is just kind of like it's power by inaction as well. I think to some degree, and that, like you were saying, the power belongs to the people, and if the people aren't taking action, that in itself is an action.
Yeah,
I suppose they're choosing not to do things, or they're choosing to do things in such a way, and that's kind of how I took it, as the people that are like Pat the Bunny, or at least what I've gathered from this album, that were like Pat the Bunny, the nobodies, right? The lower, messy, carefree people, by not partaking in the system is kind of changing the system.
Yeah, I feel like that's like the whole movement that he kind of wasn't. I mean, I know he was an activist. He was like running a distro of, like, I guess, magazines that like taught the ideals that he followed, at least at the time, where he was like promoting other people's music who were also writing stuff similar to him. So he was kind of doing that. I think he did. I mean, he was an activist in, like, I guess, the normal sense, but I think a lot of what he did was just kind of use his ability to make music and connect with people to like spread ideals, which
seems kind of hypocritical to something that comes up later on the album that I'll talk about.
I mean, okay, we'll get there when we get there. Maybe he'll be condemned and we'll sing a hymn for him. It'll be the church hymn for the condemned.
Nailed it. That's a good sound. I never said it out loud, but hearing you say it, church hymn for the condemned, it kind of has a nice flow to it. That's track number 2.
Yeah.
By the way, we are moving on because we don't want this to be a 2-hour episode.
Yeah.
And Joey's written a lot, and I don't want to make you rush through this at all. By the way, I'm very curious because it's so personal to you. Like it's kind of like learning about you while learning about the music. So I encourage you to take all the time you fucking want and make me a liar. I'm fine with it.
Well, maybe I'll do that. So this one, I guess I'll take the music here because we're gonna run into a problem here whenever talking about the music. Not because it's bad, but because I think at a certain point we're going to run out of stuff to talk about.
Oh yeah, for sure. By like track 4, the rest I have no notes on music at all.
Yeah, this one, it introduces the trumpet. So there was the harmonica in the first track. This one brings in the addition of a trumpet. And this one, I started to notice something. The background vocalist behind Pat, it was kind of weird because I used to just listen on like shitty headphones, car stereos, like I didn't have great sound quality. And then listening to this so many times over the past week, you can hear somebody singing behind him, and there's certain parts where I can make out the fact that they don't know all the lyrics.
Yeah.
So the guy's kind of just like, no. But we are the revolution. Like,
yeah,
he's just kind of.
That's what I was saying about the kind of feel of like he's just like playing in a barn somewhere, and he has like a bunch of friends over, and they all know the lyrics, so they're just chiming in every now and then. And I also noted the vocal melody on this. I didn't pay attention to the fact that they didn't know the lyrics, but I like the sound of having that kind of melody happening, the vocal kind of harmony. I guess it's not really harmony, but well, I guess technically it is. If the same note's being played, it's still harmonizing with itself. But regardless, I like the kind of layered vocal aspect of it, and the rhythm is kind of like reinforced by the guitar. He has like a very like interesting rhythmic style of singing that I think I kind of enjoy. The trumpet, it's here. It's super simple. It's a little rough, but I think that kind of fits it perfectly. That kind of like captures the rest of the feeling of this album. Also, one last note. At the end, he shouts "Hail Satan,"
Yeah.
which we talked a little bit about on Mischief Brew because he did a similar thing.
Yep.
It might be a forced thing, like I complained about on the Mischief Brew episode, but I feel like it fits better here, and that like this whole album kind of has that feeling to it. This song and this album really, to me, feels like what Mischief Brew wanted to be. Which in itself is kind of an insult because punk isn't really supposed to be like anything necessarily, but that's just kind of what it feels. This feels like what Mischief Brew was striving to achieve.
Yeah, and I think it's something that you can only get, like, it's kind of like lightning trapped in a bottle. I mean, you can only get it. I'm sure these recording sessions, the Hail Satan part, I'm sure it was planned, but I think it was planned out of like, oh, we're all in this recording studio. We're all like, we're playing a song about like shitty people running religion and stuff. So at the end, like, it's just you and your friends fucking around versus whenever you're in like a recording studio environment.
Trying to sound cool.
Yeah, like I feel like Pat the Bunny and his musicians that he plays with are all, they're so kind of like authentic in a way that I mean, like all the music, it sounds live, but it's recorded like at a recording session, but it still just sounds so raw. So I feel like, especially with how self-referential and like he's very aware of at least who the lyrics he's writing at times, that I feel like he's not taking any of it too seriously, but he means what he's singing at the same time.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And I think that's what really clicked, is that like I mentioned the first track, he there is this kind of weird rational aspect of his lyrics. It's very like, it's thought about. It's not just like an offhanded like repeating of something that he's heard. He's genuinely feeling these things, and he kind of like, he's taken time to become self-aware about what that means and what the words he's saying mean. So it doesn't feel as hokey and tropey, I guess, as Mischief Brew did for me.
Well, I'm glad that you kind of warmed up to, I mean, I know it's different, but like warmed up to the idea of it, because especially whenever I heard the end of this where he just yells "Hail Satan," I was like, oh, that's kind of like the I'm going to hell for that one. Like it's almost even in the same, like it's talking about like the devil or something. But
I didn't mind it.
Cool.
I think just overall this album does everything better than the Mischief Brew album did. Lyrically, this one for me, I know you kind of mentioned the religious aspect to it. I didn't necessarily dive into that, even though like, I mean, it's called Church Hymn for the Condemned, and he says "Hail Satan" at the end. Like there's definitely that, but I didn't really like focus on that. To me, this song, at least on the surface level, is just about kind of like loving the chaos that comes with his freedom from society's rules, where it's kind of got this like punk anarchist edge, but it's more eloquently stated than Mischief Brew was when he was talking about all of his anarchist stuff. I really like, there's a line he says, "Nothing scares me as much as the fact that I don't give a shit for redemption." And I like that because it, to me, it's kind of like saying that he realizes that the way he's living is so like opposed to the normal societal way, and that it is a risky choice to kind of live like that because it's outside of the normal bounds or whatever, and he knows it's kind of risky, but he's also kind of saying like, well, so be it. This is who I am, so it's a risk I have to take, otherwise I'm gonna hate my life, kind of a thing.
Definitely. Like it's stuff like that where he's aware of both sides of what he's talking about. Like
right.
that I think I connected with so much whenever I was listening to it the first time, where I was like, because I mean, I was young, I was still definitely in the midst of being just this crazy unhinged person that
Yeah.
I was for a time, and but this kind of gave me the ability to indulge in that chaos, the beauty of that chaos that he's talking about, where you're just there's no plan for anything. You could literally anything could happen at any moment, and that's what makes it great. Nothing's exactly cookie cutter, nothing's perfect, nothing's but that I guess difference is what makes stuff worth doing and what makes everything worth living. And it's like that ability to see both sides of it, like, okay, it's super cool, but there's also a point where it's like it's not great for you.
Right.
And he's very aware of that, and that helped me see, I guess, the good and the bad of the way I was living.
It's a very well informed statement.
If only I could have had that kind of thought whenever I was actually 19. But it came a little bit later. But it was
sure. I mean, nobody's born knowing everything. It's just part of your journey as a person growing up and developing who you are.
Yeah, and not to mention, I mean, there is like the slight religious aspect where he ends both verses with talking about, I mean, not caring about redemption or anything, and he says, but that's okay, because if it's where Falwell goes, talking about Jerry Falwell, like a televangelist, he's like, then I don't even want any part of heaven. And then he ends the second chorus where he's talking about that's okay because that's okay because if that's where Limbaugh goes, then I don't even want any part of heaven. And that was kind of a thought that I had whenever I was falling out of like religion, is like there's so many shitty people who do all this stuff and they're like are they the ones going to heaven? Why would it, like, who wants to be there?
Yeah. I mean, heaven's myth anyway, so I'm not gonna
Yeah.
go off that rail yet. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
we'll stay on it all the way to the end of the line, and whenever you're tired, we can pass it around because whiskey is my kind of lullaby.
Hell yeah. That sounded like you were writing a song.
It kind of did.
Titled "Whiskey Is My Kind of Lullaby," which is coincidentally track number 3. It's already a song, but
hell yeah. I think you've heard this song before. Either you have, or it was another one of our friends, Adam. Because
I don't know if I have or not.
Okay.
I might have. I don't know. I didn't click with any of these songs on here that none of them specifically stood out as, oh, I've heard this.
Okay.
So I either repressed it, which is highly likely, or I just haven't heard it. But yeah, this was got kind of like a waltzy kind of 3/4 time, and it was unexpected, and so it was kind of cool in that aspect. It's got more trumpet and acoustic guitar, which by this point in the album, I'm like, yeah, I assume this is going to be the music of the album. It's guitar, trumpet, and occasionally harmonica. I was right.
Yeah. One thing I do like about his guitar is the way that he strums is very percussive. So it kind of takes the place of actual percussion, which would almost seem out of place in music like this, where it's very folky. I mean, it's still punk, but it's very like folky. And if everybody knows, like, most folk musicians don't have like a fucking drum kit behind them. Maybe a cajon, but I'm sure nobody at this recording session could afford a cajon. But yeah, it's very cool. And I feel like for a while I tried to emulate that in my own guitar playing.
Well, that also makes some sort of sense. Joey's a great guitarist, by the way. I'm going to put that on the internet.
I wouldn't go that far.
I know Joey is embarrassed by his skill. He's a very good guitarist, and I recommend you listen to his music if he releases it to the public.
Maybe I will one day, and then you can shit on me all over the
internet. Hell no, bro. You're great. You're golden. But back to this album that is already out and released to the public that we've been talking about. That's what we do on this podcast, by the way.
The whole point of it.
The whole point of it. Lyrically, track number 3. This one is about vices, right? And namely grabbing onto those vices like drugs, cigarettes, alcohol, or whatever, and those vices overtaking your willingness to achieve your goals, at least is what I got out of it, where they're kind of like keeping you subdued and content while your life wastes away, preventing you from, quote unquote, being somebody. And while I don't have those specific vices, like I'm not a drug addict. I've never smoked a cigarette in my life, and I do drink, but I'm not an alcoholic. I don't lean on alcohol for anything. I do feel that it's super relatable in that, like, everyone has something that they go to kind of keep themselves content and self-defeating, where like, I don't know, for me video games is a big one, I think. And previously I've lived my life very kind of like nihilistically, I suppose, thinking that the likelihood of me achieving some sort of grand feeling of success is so slim that I might as well just be happy with where I'm at and be content with where I am in life. And even if I did meet my goals, it really wouldn't matter because I'm going to die eventually and it doesn't mean anything, which maybe it's not inherently bad necessarily to think like that, but it definitely like stymies a lot of efforts that could be spent on self-improvement and other things. And I don't know, I'm getting better at it this year specifically. I'm trying to kind of break a lot of issues that I've self-imposed, I suppose, but I'm still kind of a negative Nancy. But yeah, I guess I took this and painted my own picture with his lyrics. I'm sure that he wasn't necessarily being as nihilistic about life. I mean, I guess he is in some aspects.
Yeah, I honestly think music like this is just, all music, not just music like this, but if that's what you got out of it, then that's what it was meant to do. Because
Right.
that's kind of a little bit how I took it, where it was like, I more of took it from the aspect of kind of like you don't know what you have until it's gone, but more to, I don't know. The opening lyrics, I was a loner until there were no friends left. And before someone offered me drugs, I was straight edge. Like, not being able to control yourself, thinking that you can because you've never been confronted with the experience or the offer or something. And specifically the I was a loner until there were no friends left, where it's like you can have all these thoughts that you want inside the comfort of what you have and what you're comfortable with, and just kind of where you live your normal life. But the second that gets taken away, you realize that you only felt that way because maybe you didn't think it was possible, or you could only do it on your own terms or something. But it's just, I guess, anything can get taken to the extreme, and you never know where you're going to stand until that moment arises, or until you are confronted with something that you didn't even know that you may want. I never thought I was going to smoke cigarettes, and then I just did one day. Like,
Yeah.
it just happened because some dude was like, "Hey, you look old. Could you go head down to that I'm not gonna name a business name, but that place in New Albany." And oh shit, that place down the road. And I know that they won't check your ID. You can buy me some Black and Milds. And then I was like, well, if you give me enough for me or something, just because
Yeah.
I wanted to. I don't know. I was like 14. I wanted to seem
Yeah,
cool.
you got to run game on the kids, you know?
Yeah, and I was like, okay, so I got one, and then that was it. It just, from there it spiraled.
So hold on, you were 14 years old buying cigarettes for someone younger than you?
For someone older than me.
Oh, okay, but they just weren't old enough.
They just weren't 18 yet.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I don't know, man. That's the year before that is where my life really went off the rails, but it just that's just where it all went nuts.
Interesting.
But,
yeah, I definitely agree. I can definitely see the kind of like perceived safety in your reality versus what's actual reality kind of a thing, where you're content with what you have and you think that is your life, and then you experience something new that you've never experienced before, and that drastically changes how you view life.
Yeah. And that's just the first, like, there's definitely still for sure aspects of what you were talking about as well, because I realized I only really referenced the very first verse, and the rest of it is talking about, drinking yourself to sleep in a ditch. So
yeah, it's it doesn't. Yeah, that's the thing that, like, I don't know. It's so hard to tell how much of his lyrics are referring to him personally versus kind of satirizing a lot of things, because he at some points in this album it seems like he's almost proud to have addictions to drugs and alcohol and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which doesn't track in my brain as like a logically sound thing to say, but again, he's punk. He's living his own way. I don't fucking know him.
And that's the thing. So, like, he kind of did, and that was kind of just the movement that he was in. Like, at this point, maybe yeah, at this point, he was like hardcore addicted to heroin. He would sleep. He was literally just traveling from house to house. He played shows for like 12 people in a bathroom at somebody's house who would let him sleep on their couch and maybe eat a sandwich or two and like give him some alcohol or something. Like he just went across the states doing that, and that's just how he lived. And I think it was kind of a point of pride, and that's where like, because I kind of felt that too. Like I started like smoking, and not necessarily smoking cigarettes, but I started smoking like tobacco products when I was like 14. And I mean, I had smoked other stuff, like started that like the year before that, and I started drinking around that time as well. Like, and it's just, there were times where I was like, I felt like a veteran at age 18 whenever everybody else was like starting their partying phase and stuff, and I was like, I've already been in it. And it's like I'm moving on to whatever else. And because around
heroin, meth, cocaine,
no, I've never done heroin, I've never done meth, I've never done coke, but yeah, I don't know. But it was just like I wore it as a badge of pride, I guess is what I'll say. So like that was kind of something that I gravitated towards in this album. And he's so tongue-in-cheek about it, where it's like you can tell that he doesn't necessarily believe himself, but he's still saying it like he believes it. And I think part of him does, but there's a part of him that knows like, this, I can't keep doing this.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to the prior song, kind of like being self-aware of the rules of society, and kind of acknowledging that like, yeah, I'm past the point of redemption. I'm living in ways that are not good for me, and I there's part of me that acknowledges that, and maybe to some extent shames me for that, but there's a larger part that just doesn't give a fuck anymore.
Yeah, man, what a good album for me.
It is interesting. So you haven't done, let's just go through all the drugs here. You haven't done meth, heroin, cocaine. What about acid? Have you ever been on acid and written an acid song?
I have written an acid song before, but I wasn't on acid when I did it.
Was it track number 4 on this album?
It was. I wish it could be half as good as track number 4 on this album. Acid song.
I was not actually trying to figure out if you've done acid. It was just a segue.
I was like, wait a second, what kind of accusations are you making, Jeremy?
Track number 4, acid song. It's the music. This one has the harmonica comes back, but the trumpet's still there, but it's pretty much, you know what you're getting into at this point for me, at least.
Yeah, this one, the only real thing I had to talk about was just like, I really like the ferocity in Pat's voice here. It's just super cool. I mean, he does the same harsh sounding vocals in every song, but like there's somewhere you can just feel that he brings it more.
Yeah.
And this is one of those as well.
I agree. He's a very emotive person with his voice, and I think it lends itself well to the music.
Like Corbin?
Kind of like Corbin, yeah, in a different way.
Well, I guess since we have literally nothing to talk about when it comes to music, lyrically, this one is, I mean, it's more kind of against the society, but it's more toward, I feel like this one takes more of a religious stance, because I mean, it starts off, well, if I found God anywhere, it would be by the tracks, face down in a boxcar, 40 in both hands, and and when I find God there, we'll just sit and roll some top, which is a brand of tobacco. It's you have to roll it yourself. And he says, because he'll be just as confused as anyone else on this rock. And that kind of like, that always hit me, because it was like, I don't know, being a person who was outside of religion, who was well familiar with religion, but was outside of it at this point in my life. It was a thought that I had where it's like, shit, if there was a God and he had to like
he had to see the world he's created,
dude would be getting fucking plastered. out every day. He just would not be able to deal with
it.
Yeah.
What
a mistake.
Yeah, that's pretty much 100% what I got from the songs. And he's just like, he's talking about how life is futile and how the world's just fucking awful and that it's God's fault and that God fucked up making us because of what we've done with our sentient gift, kind of a thing. And he also kind of like, I don't know, this is the first point in the album where I was like, man, he has issues. Speaking of Pat the Bunny, where he just like, it's very clear throughout this album that he could not get his shit together. And to me at least, from my ivory tower perhaps, it seemed like he was just ready to blame other people and blame other things. And I think this is where a lot of his punk quote unquote ideals came from, is that he's blaming the system for how he turned out in some aspects, because he couldn't get his shit together, and he thinks it's because of the way the world is, which to some degree is absolutely valid. I don't know, granted, I don't know how Pat the Bunny was raised, but there are a lot of systemic issues that keep down people down and that keep rich people rich, and it's there's a lot of society versus certain classes. But I don't know, it comes off to me, especially because I never had that kind of issue, so this is definitely like from a lack of experience and perspective, I suppose. But it felt kind of like a cop out to blame society for all of his issues, because he can't stop drinking, he can't get off drugs, he can't be the person he wants to be, kind of a thing.
There definitely is some of that, and he's done plenty of interviews since then, and I'll just go this far into it at least. Like, he doesn't play these songs anymore. Like, if he were to play a show, at a certain point, he just stopped playing these songs because he was like, look, I don't agree with what I had wrote back then. He's like, not like he completely disagrees with a lot of like the social ideals that he puts out on these albums, but he's like, a lot of these songs just like they don't feel like me anymore.
Yeah, they came from a dark place in his life, and he's not there anymore.
He stopped playing, I think, all Johnny Hobo songs at a certain point, and then just didn't play them anymore.
Oh yeah, good for you, Mr. Pat the Bunny. Maybe you did finally get your shit together, it sounds like.
He did. He did eventually, and I mean, like we all do, like it just takes time. It takes a journey.
Do you know how old he was around this era?
Well, these Johnny Hobo started in 2000. This album originally came out in 2005. He was born in 1987, I believe. So he would have been
like 18.
Yeah, like 18-ish around the time. Maybe he was born a little bit earlier. He references in in a song that he's been waking up since 1987, and
yeah, I wasn't sure if that was like supposed to be a birth date, or if that was like the event of something happening in his life that changed him, or if that's when he declared that he had control over his life, or whatever. I wasn't sure what that meant.
Yeah. Okay. So I just looked it up. He was born in 1987. So.
Okay. Cool.
That's how I always took it, but then I was trying to do some mental math, and I was like, he would be really fucking young. Which, I mean, I know he started music really young, like, so that would line up with the 2000 start date, but it's just nuts that he would be making these types of songs.
Right. That's where that dissonance was coming from when he said that line, because I was like, wait, there's no way he was that young writing all this shit. But hey, I guess he fucking grew up quick.
Well, and so he also, to reference something from New Mexico Song, he says a line in there, class traitor, what fucking ever, I'm just another middle class kid too. He got a lot of shit in his early days because he was raised in like what you would consider a perfectly normal household, by like, not like super rich parents or anything, but I mean by parents that were doing just fine in Vermont. So like, he kind of came from a normal like middle class family and he chose this life. Like,
and that confuses the hell out of me, because again, like I was talking about, it feels like a lot of this album is him blaming society for his own problems. But if he's the one that created them, like, I mean, I guess that's typically how it goes, right? Somebody gets themselves into trouble and doesn't want to accept the responsibility that they were the ones that did it. So I guess that's not that shocking, but on the surface level, it seemed shocking to me.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, he I think he started with a lot of ideals because he talks about like reading like Karl Marx books and just a lot of like, I guess, outside of capitalist viewpoint books whenever he was young. So I mean, I'm assuming he chose it to reject society in that way, and then kind of, I mean, whenever you're on the streets, like you just start living a certain life. And whenever you get in, especially with a crowd that's very counterculture, very anarchist, very against society, it's gonna be hard to toe that line of not falling into the wrong parts. One thing that we're taking a long time on this song, but one thing before we fuck it up, the line. So it's a lot of lines. So he says, "I took 2 tabs of acid yesterday afternoon. Woke up this morning with the torn pair of shoes. Found I'd ruined my life and everyone else's too. I guess this is what my teachers warned me drugs would do." And then he goes on, "But they forgot to mention the way that morphine makes the pain go away." And that's a line that's always stuck with me, where it just reminds me of all the like DARE meetings and the anti-drug stuff that we had like pushed down our throats in school, where they were just like, which, I mean, yeah, don't do drugs, kids. Like, but there's also, I think there's room to, at a certain point, hear that drugs are not strictly a villain. Like, there is an amount of responsibility that can go with it. And if you can foster responsible thoughts towards certain drugs, not saying everybody should be out there like, I don't think there's a responsible way to like shoot heroin or anything, but like at least as far as certain like more recreational drugs, like more psychoactive type drugs, like I think there's a responsibility that you can go into looking at them, that whenever they're just taught as strictly the villain and strictly terrible things, it loses that nuance that allows you to have a healthy relationship with it. Because if you hear something is just the fucking devil your whole life, and then a lot of people end up trying drugs regardless of what they heard in school.
Maybe because of what they heard. Maybe they're I mean, it's the teenage nature to rebel, right? If you're told something is bad and you shouldn't do it, you're going to want to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you're going to get kind of pushed towards it. And then there can also be the thought, which this is a thought that I had after the fact, that whenever you try some of that stuff and you realize like, well, that wasn't so bad. And then you think, what else have they been lying to me about just to get me to stay off of stuff or whatever?
Right.
And that fosters, I think, an unhealthy curiosity because it's coming from a bad place. It's not coming from a place of, well, I want to discover something new. It's, I want to try all the shit because I don't know what society was lying to me about. And maybe that's not the right way to take it, but that's a way that I think I took it, and it caused me to do a lot of things that that line of thinking, I think, drove me to do stuff that thinking back now,
wouldn't have done.
Yeah, I'm like, why? What? I used to be so self-destructive, and I feel like that line of thinking that I had, not saying that it was necessarily planted in me by anyone, but like that distrust that I just kind of learned over time, I think that drove a lot of it.
I have 2 things to say to that. One is I guess backing up a little bit when you were talking about a certain level of responsibility with taking certain drugs that is acceptable. I agree. However, I kind of also feel like it's a bit selective, because the following lines, there are 2 more lines to that stanza. He says, "But they forgot to mention the way that morphine makes the pain go away, which when painted such a way," yeah, that sounds innocent enough. But then the next 2 lines, he says, "And how I'll always remember the good times in my spine and the holes I burned in my brain," with this next line. So like clearly he's going past that.
Yeah.
At least in my eyes, where he's almost trying to rationalize doing cocaine and doing other things just because like taking some of those harder drugs that maybe can't be enjoyed as responsibly, or something. So I just felt like that there was some more context needed.
There's definitely a stipulation there because he is not preaching any sort of like controlled, responsible amount of
yeah. But I do agree that in some scenarios with the right restraint and responsibility, then absolutely enjoy yourself.
But just don't go fucking nuts, or maybe you'll have to wait for the next politician to come along and pardon you if they get elected so they can sing an election song and get you out of fucking jail or not be dead anymore.
Yeah, like track number 5, election song. Moving right along. This one has kind of a nice swingy feel to it. It's something interesting that I noticed from a songwriting perspective. I'm very critical of myself when I'm writing music, but like a lot of this, he writes a guitar riff, like a chord progression, and the trumpet just kind of mirrors that. It's not doing its own thing. And I feel like when I'm writing music, I tend to try to make several different, like each instrument has its own melody going on, kind of thing. And I think this kind of like put some of that in perspective where like, okay, you don't have to be so crazy about writing 50 different melodies for the same song, which I appreciated in this kind of roughness. But yeah, the trumpet just kind of like mirrors the guitar riff, and it's got a nice kind of like swingy, like bouncy feel to it. And it reminded me that the music in this context of this album is really just existing for some sort of structure where like the only reason the music is there is because acapella punk isn't really a thing that I'm aware of anyway. But I feel like acapella punk could be a thing, but at this point in time, at least, he was just like, I have to have something music right there.
I definitely feel that because before this, Johnny Hobo kind of started as just him with like and it was like a Casio keyboard or something and a drum machine, and he would kind of just like write the same type of punk music, but it would be played over like some midis or something that he could just get his hands on. So it was kind of like the music was secondary to the vocals. Which, I mean, for song, like especially a genre called folk punk, I feel like folk and punk are two very music backward, lyric forward like genres. So to combine them is just, well, it's all about the lyrics for the most part.
I agree. Speaking of lyrics,
haha,
this one, to me at least, it came across as like trying everything to forget about the state of the world. Specifically, it seemed in the context that George W. Bush got elected or reelected, I suppose, in 2005. And it kind of made me wonder how Mr. Pat the Bunny, if I'm assuming he's still alive, what he has to say about Mr. Trump getting elected.
Oh boy. Well, I mean, full disclaimer, he's not a very public figure, but like he's kind of shed from the limelight, and for a while he wasn't doing shows. Like he kind of swore off music, at least of the punk variety, in I think it was 2016. He put out an EP that he had done with somebody else, and he was like, this is kind of my farewell from the music scene, at least this music scene. He gave his reasons as not perfectly aligning with the ideals anymore or something, but he's started doing music again, at least playing shows, playing his old songs and stuff. And he hasn't really given an update, but judging by some other music that is not on this album, I feel like he would have a lot to say.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Maybe he can do an election song too at some point.
Yeah, definitely. I bet he would love to do that if he was still in the scene.
Yeah.
This one I just realized is I was telling Jeremy I had to correct 2 lyrics on Genius while I actually made an account to do so. I had never had a Genius account, but it's very nitpicky. Jeremy was like telling me I was an actually guy, and I actually am, because the opening verse is
actually I am an actually guy.
That's me. The opening verse is, I curse the world 1 second, demand it buy me a sandwich in the next, or else I'm bumming the cigarettes. And then Genius says, to help me to forget how hungry I am. And the actual lyrics are, or else I'm bumming the cigarettes, that will help me forget how hungry I am.
What a nerd.
So I had to change that. But yeah, he's pretty much just talking about like the state of the world and drowning your drowning your political sorrows in booze and other things.
Caffeine, nicotine, amphetamine, stimulants.
Oh God, I hope more stimulants are on the way, because who doesn't have a drug problem these days? It's lines like that where I'm just like, he's poking fun at himself and his whole movement, I guess.
At fucking 18 years old, man. What a wild fucking childhood that guy must have had.
Jesus. Oh man.
I want cancer for Christmas. I'm just gonna say it.
Oh my God, Jeremy.
I don't know how the fuck I'm supposed to segue. That's the title for track number 6. I don't actually want cancer for Christmas.
I would hope not. That'd be a terrible Christmas.
I'm not in the segue mood. I should just let you do it. You've been doing a great job this whole time.
I've been trying. I didn't know how I was going to do this one, but maybe I was going to try to make one of those like dark jokes, like, what do you get a kid with cancer for Christmas? A dead puppy, because fuck.
Because life sucks.
Yeah, it's just some shit like that.
Yeah. But this one, it's got the upbeat acoustic. There's not much else going on.
Yeah, the energy's kind of pulled back a little bit on this one, like at least during the opening. I mean, it's still like him with his harsh vocals, but I feel like the guitar it keeps that waltz feel. Maybe not waltz feel, but just kind of gentle feel.
Yeah, it is music.
It is music.
That is what I have to say about that.
Lyrically, this song, it was one of the ones that just like from the first time I heard it, it just hit really hard, because it's talking about individuality, about being told to be yourself, but understanding, at least thinking you understand that that's not good enough, and just feeling like you're going to fuck everything up because who you are doesn't live up to these expectations of the people around you. And man, just like to think about social anxiety that I had, which over time went away. Like by the end of high school, I was fine.
Yeah.
But just the second verse, I remember grade school and started to notice that I was the only kid sitting alone. And then I remember high school and started to notice that not much had changed since I was 6 years old. And it just makes me think about like they're having moved into middle school, coming from a Catholic private school into a public school. I felt like even though there were other kids from the school that I changed, it was like they all kind of had their people. And I mean, like, I definitely still had friends. I wasn't like a kid with absolutely no friends to hang out with. I'm lucky enough to have known several people pretty much from my entire life. But I felt like I couldn't, like, they were making new friends too, and I wasn't. I have had a long-standing history of being like, I'm not my best friend's best friend feeling with other people, I guess. And that's kind of like what that part of this song personified with me. And then just, I'm going to go ahead and call it out, because we always like want to call out whenever there's depressive or suicidal talk in the albums that we're talking about. But just the chorus, whenever you're a teenager who's trying to figure his shit out, I would spend a lifetime trying to figure out how to make myself stop breathing. It just hits really different whenever you're just an emotional person and you're like, I want this to be over, but
don't do that.
Don't. Yeah.
If you're in that situation, again, I'll recite the number. I should get this tattooed on my eyelids or something. 1-800-273-8255 is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Give them a call. Give us a call. Give somebody a call. Talk to somebody about what you're feeling, because I guarantee you're not alone. You're not as alone as you think you are. And if your parents don't understand, if your friends don't understand, give that number a call. They'll help you through it, because you're not alone, and it's not worth killing yourself for. I promise.
Yeah, I mean, people are writing songs like this. They feel the same way you're feeling.
Yeah.
Maybe not the same exact way, but they have the same feelings you're having. Plenty of people have made it through and changed, and things got better. You're never going to see anything get better if you stop, which is something that's hard to accept. It's really hard to accept sometimes. but it's true.
It's so easy to fall into the thinking of like, well, life's been hard for this long, it's not going to get any better. But you don't know that. You can't know that. The only way to find out is if you continue living.
Yeah.
And the
Which
only
sounds like
you have to give life the opportunity to stop fucking you in the ass, because sometimes it does. Some people have really shitty situations, they really shitty luck. They fall into that kind of trap, and it's not easy to get out of those situations, but it is possible.
Yeah.
And you're not the only person going through it, and it helps to talk about those things. So give them a call. Again, the number is 1-800-273-8255 if you need someone to talk to. Leave us some comments, send us a message on Facebook. If we're awake, we'll respond, I promise.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with the thought of knowing someone reached out to us and then killed themselves because we didn't respond. Not that we have that kind of clout or power over anybody, but I would rather talk to you than have you kill yourself.
Yeah, I'd rather talk to you while I get the chance to make sure there's more chances.
Indeed.
But I don't know how to segue into the next song, so I'm just going to say it because that got kind of deep.
We got heavy for a minute.
So track number 7 is called Harmony Parking Lot Song.
Indeed.
There's a lot of songs that end in the word song on this album.
Yeah, I didn't notice it. but there are a few. This one is the Harmony Parking Lot song because he wrote it presumably in the Harmony Parking Lot. I did look into this a little bit. I don't remember where I saw it, but apparently there was a parking lot that he favored to just kind of like go and chill out and write songs, which I think is cool as shit. Just being, because I don't know, I feel it's hard for me at least to feel super motivated to create songs or create anything just sitting at home in my office. So like getting out and going somewhere and seeing something new and experiencing the outside that is not something I experience on a daily basis is a nice change of perspective that kind of helps get creativity flowing.
Yeah, for sure. Like just something about changing the space that you're in. Or, I mean, for him, it sounds like he might not have had a home at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, just
a reliable place that he could go.
Yeah, just like, and it sounds like it was kind of a public parking space, but it sounds like it's kind of the place where all the people that kind of thought like him or were like him would be hanging out. So it was probably a good place for where he knew like-minded people or his friends or whoever were going to be, so he could kind of hang out and have the camaraderie to get inspiration.
Which is cool. You gotta get inspiration where you can get it, even if it's from some parking lot somewhere or from some hobos, around a barrel fire or something. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Side note, I want to have a barrel fire at some point soon.
You have a fire pit, just put a barrel around it, and then there you go.
I really need to, because that would be fucking awesome. I've always wanted to have a barrel fire. But this song, I feel like, is a pretty good example of him being able to write a song from different points of view. Harmony Parking Lot, it sounds like it was kind of the place to be for kind of the underbelly or the counterculture or the people who were kind of going against the system. Mm-hmm. So he obviously saw a lot of people there who maybe weren't around for too long, maybe got picked up by the cops, maybe made their life better and changed things and like actually packed up their shit and left and got a house or went to school or something. And this song kind of just seems like a moment in time captured, but over time. Like he's talking about growing up in that environment, the friends that you make, and kind of living the way he lives, not necessarily changing so much, but watching the people around you kind of leave and the acceptance of that, like missing them. I mean, he's talking about missing them, like missing railing pills with them in the park and missing all the skyscrapers on fire and miss the spray paint and the slash tires. And like, he's missing all this kind of hooligan shit, but he's realizing that these people, they're moving on and they're doing new things, or maybe they got taken away and they're not there anymore. And it's kind of just an acceptance and a remembrance of those people and those times.
Yeah. I think that is definitely an aspect of this. But I don't know. Again, this is from my ivory tower, perhaps. The chorus, he's singing, "Here's to the rubble, a brick through every window, a casket buried 6 feet deep for everybody's hero. Here's to our lives being meaningless and how beautiful it is because freedom doesn't have a purpose." And it just like, I don't know, that with the context of him watching other people in his circle slowly leave or grow up or whatever it may be, it felt more and more to me like this is just him refusing to adapt to society and choosing to act out because of his upbringing. But apparently that's not the case, so I don't know why necessarily he's feeling the need to kind of act the way he is. But it's more anarchistic, I suppose, and more like that Mischief Brew kind of style of anarchy that's just like, well, nothing matters, so I might as well throw a brick through someone's fucking window. Like, I don't support that kind of shit because, like, I don't know. It feels like chaos for the sake of chaos instead of chaos for the sake of trying to bring about change necessarily.
Yeah, I can understand the thought behind, and not necessarily the actions of, but the thought behind, like, throwing, I don't know, breaking shit to try to get attention to bring change. I don't think that's necessarily the right way to do it.
Yeah.
But, like,
I mean,
I don't know.
I don't even think that was his intention necessarily. If he was an 18-year-old kid living on streets, throwing a brick into somebody's window, I doubt he's doing it to get their attention to come talk to them and tell them why their life is wrong and what needs to change. And like, I feel like it's not, it's those acts without intention just because that they can do it and they can do hooligan shit, you know, like you said.
I think, and this is me just trying to get into his head. I feel like it's from a point of trying to tear down all higher society in any way possible. But yeah, it's kind of like, I mean, it is just, chaos for really the sake of chaos, because thinking about it, like, logically, that's not going to do anything.
Right.
If you turn,
I mean, okay, in theory, right, it pisses somebody off.
Yeah.
Right. And in theory, piss off enough people, they'll band together and make change happen, I guess is the way that it could be quote unquote justified. But I feel like in practice that's not going to happen.
Yeah, there's not enough. I was about to quote a later album of his. There's not there's not enough windows you can break to set us free, or not enough windows to break us free, I think is exactly how he says it. But you can't do this until people wake up, because people are probably already woken up and they're just living their lives, and they don't have the power to affect change, and throwing a brick through their window is not gonna really do anything productive, probably.
Yeah, it's not gonna do anything but ruin their day.
Yeah, unless you somehow like find the governor's house and you throw a brick through the window and it goes through and it hits a special button that's like Medicare for all, and also we're going to clean up the streets and everybody has affordable housing. Like, if your brick hits that button and that happens, that's probably
I mean, I feel like the more realistic opportunity there would be throwing a brick with a message attached to it, or a letter saying like, hey, look, governor, now that I have your fucking attention, it took me throwing a brick through your window to get your attention, but now that I have it, this is what I think needs to change. And the governor can either see that and tell damn hooligans and throw the brick back out the window and get his window replaced, or ideally, you know, read the thoughts and understand where his what are people that live under a mayor or a governor? Constituents. That's what I was thinking, but I'm not sure if that's the townspeople, the townsfolk, the city folk, and listen to what they're saying and try to adapt that into action, I suppose, for the city. But that's not how politicians work. That's not how politicians in general work, I should say. They don't give a fuck about what the people want.
Yeah, if all your demands are just going to end up on some big ass fucking document that's never going to get read by anybody, it's going to get left untitled, and it's going to go nowhere.
Nice. Track number 8, Untitled.
Boom.
This is the one where I felt like him releasing his own magazine or scripture or whatever is kind of hypocritical, because to me this song is about true independence to the most extreme order, and not conforming to any sort of standards of intelligence or order, and just kind of like existing one day at a time. And even to the point, I think he says he burning down his own library or something, or his own bookshelf or something, which to me was like, even ignoring what you believed the previous day and completely reassessing what you believe today, instead of thinking like how your experiences today fit in or don't fit in with your beliefs from yesterday. So it feels kind of weird to like be so prominently independent and talking about like not following anybody, including yourself, and then to go in and give out a magazine saying, hey, here's some cool thoughts.
Yeah, there is a disconnect there, and the only way I can like reconcile it is I think there were different viewpoints in the magazine that he's putting out. I can't confirm or deny that, only just kind of what I've gathered from like interviews with him, watching live shows, because usually if you watch, a lot of people have home footage of him playing at their house where he's kind of just talking about the bands that he's promoting, who he likes, or the magazine that he's putting out. And I think the magazine might have come after this album was recorded.
Yeah.
So maybe even then some stuff had changed. But yeah, this song is very much just like, fuck everybody else's thoughts. Whatever I'm thinking is how I like, however I'm feeling currently, that's my ideals. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna live for. And it's a very, I don't know, I guess I don't want to say hedonistic, because he's not a man of excess, at least in a lot of aspects of life. But he seems to be very...
He's a minimalist hedonist.
Yeah, exactly. Just give him a couch to sleep on and some drugs.
Yeah.
And a guitar.
And maybe he'll write in a magazine explaining how to give yourself an orgasm.
Yeah. DIY orgasms.
What a title for track number 9.
Hell yeah.
This is the last track. We're doing okay on time. See,
yeah.
I mean, we're at the hour mark, but like, it's not as long as last week or the week before. So
yeah, we're slowly chopping some time off.
We're bringing it back. We're reeling it back in. We'll see if it stays that way next week.
Yeah. So musically, I mean, the trumpet hook is super catchy. I don't know what else to say other than I like to sing along to this song.
Yeah, I actually noted that. Nice. The one note that I had for the music is I said, this one definitely has that concert for a friend's feel, and it's easy and fun to sing along with.
It feels so good. Like, it definitely, that is just the perfect feeling that it has, where it's just like you're sitting on your friend's couch, or you're sitting somewhere in their house. Like, I always instantly go to a bathroom, because that was kind of like a group of friends that I had. They had a really big bathroom in their house. I was going to
say, you got to have a big bathroom for those kind of things.
They had a big bathroom, and that's like, they didn't want people like smoking any substances in the rest of their house, like, or smoking cigarettes or anything. So, I mean, usually you just go over there, and I was the kind of person that would kind of just stay in the bathroom all night. But, and it was like, they had another bathroom. Nobody was like going in there to actually use the restroom. But that's kind of just where I hung out. And it was like, the few times that I would like play guitar over there, the rest of the people there also played. So it would be like, we'd just be jamming in this little bathroom, and everybody's just kind of hanging out. And that's very much the feeling I get whenever I listen to this song.
Hell yeah. It definitely has that feeling for me, who has not experienced that as well. I think they did a good job of capturing that. Lyrically, I feel like this track kind of underscores a lot of what I've kind of been on the cusp of throughout my notes this whole time, and that is that, like, while Pat wants to make the world a different place, he also feels like his attempts would be futile, because he's just one person, and so he turns to what he can control, which is, his own mood, his own thoughts, and he even dulls those with alcohol and drugs, because he can't really like do anything productive. So he just kind of like, he sits and he sings about how shitty the world is without any effort to actually change it. And it kind of like comes full circle with what I was saying about my own nihilistic worldview, I suppose, kind of self-defeating, right? Because you feel like you can't affect any sort of meaningful change.
Yeah, and especially like the life that he kind of chose, that he lived, it and the ideal, like the ideology that he followed, it's kind of making sure that he stays like solo.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he's kind of just like also going off like, who needs friends? Who needs love? Who needs anybody else? I've got me. Like,
right.
I don't need anybody else. Which, even the way he sings it, it's not like, I can tell it's one of those lines that I can tell he believes it in the moment, but he's also singing it in a way where it's like, this isn't the optimal. Yeah, this isn't the optimal situation that I would have my life be in.
Yeah, for sure. And he does need drugs, apparently. That's the one thing he claims to need in this song. Not love, not friends, not sex, drugs and beer. Those are the things he needs. Which I don't know. It's so like, again, it just feels so like self-defeating to be in that kind of rut, I guess, to where you like you take the booze and drugs because you know it makes you feel better about how shitty your life is, kind of a thing, and it just kind of makes your life shittier and keeps you in that kind of like loop.
Yeah, I definitely like, this was another song that I kind of connected with, like mainly because there was a certain point in my life where I was just like, relationships of any kind with people are almost too much to do.
Yeah.
And it's like, I would rather just take whatever I can to change my mindset and then not have to deal with existence, with the world, with other people. Like, that's just too much drama, or that's
for sure.
going to be too much work. And
it is.
I don't. It's very. Yeah, it is. It's a whole lot of work, but it's fine work.
It's worth it for some people, I suppose.
Yeah, sometimes, not all the time.
Yeah, I mean, some people are loners, and that's cool. Like, there's no need to shame people that are alone and are comfortable being alone. But
I love being alone, but I also there's a few people that I like, so I also like them too.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, if you were alone, I wouldn't be doing this podcast with you. I don't think I'd be doing this podcast at all, to be honest, because none of my other friends give a shit, at least not as much of a shit. So, yeah, that's cool. Overall, though, I definitely prefer this to the previous two albums we've done. Analyzing the lyrics made me like it a little bit less, just because there was something disagreeable to it for me. It kind of had that sour punk taste, I suppose, that I'm not fully in on, but it's still fun to listen to. It sounds like he had a great time recording it, and I'm all about that shit. And I'm excited to see how he progresses as a person and how his music progresses alongside of him.
So I'll put a disclaimer, because I know some folk punk people, if you ever end up listening to this, might get a little antsy in your pantsy if I don't clarify some things. I know Wingnut Dishwashers Union, which is the next week's band, Wingnut Dishwashers Union, and the album is Burn the Earth, Leave It Behind.
Okay, sorry, I'm typing that down. You're good.
Oh no, you're good. And this album, it's not technically like the next thing he recorded, but I feel like this is the next big step in his, I guess, journey. And it was also another big album to me that I heard from him.
I mean, this is a personal journey that we're kind of walking through together, and it just also happens to conveniently be the same artist going through big changes. So it's a double tongued. Is it double forked? That doesn't seem right.
Double.
If there's two forks,
double edged.
I don't know. It's got two purposes.
Two prongs. Two pronged forks.
Two-pronged fork attack of folk punk Joey life stuff happening.
What's happening?
We're falling apart, man. Let's wrap this shit up. If you guys like this episode, let us know in the comments. Send us messages. If you hated this episode, that's fine too. Let us know. I don't hate this episode. I don't hate this album. We're moving in a good direction. If you think we're going in a good direction, do let us know. But if you have any inside information about anything that we've talked about, or if you want to comment and say that I'm wrong for thinking the way I think and looking down upon these hobos from my ivory tower, let me know. I'm not opposed to hearing other perspectives. It's just my perspective on the situation, I suppose. That's all I can give.
Yeah, so, that's all you know how to give.
Reach out to us, social media, shit like that. Stay in our feedback loop. You know the drill.
Bye.